Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, January 24th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. For the second time in less than a week and a third this month, a journalist in Mexico has been murdered. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado spoke with a fellow journalist and friend of two of the reporters who were killed in Tijuana.
Vengo también aquí para pedirle apoyo, ayuda y justicia laboral, porque hasta temo por mi vida.
This is journalist Lourdes Maldonado in 2019, pleading with Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador for help because she feared for her life. On Sunday, she was gunned down outside her home in Tijuana. She's the second well-known reporter murdered in the border city in less than a week. Margarito Martinez was shot and killed outside of his Tijuana home on January 17th.
I really want to say to you that my country, my city, is safe for everyone, but it isn't true. No more.
Aline Corpus has been a border region journalist for over 20 years. Maldonado and Martinez were her friends. She's devastated over their deaths. She says reporters in the region are feeling very vulnerable.
I feel hopeless. And later what happened? Lourdes was shot. So no, we don't feel safe in Tijuana.
She says Maldonado had just attended Martinez's vigil and funeral, and his death hit too close to home.
She was very sad. I think she wasn't okay.
Reporters there have to navigate what no reporter should.
This time is very difficult to us. We have to cover and feel at the same time. So it's not easy.
Natalie Southwick is with the Committee to Protect Journalists, a nonprofit advocacy organization for reporters. She says Maldonado is the third journalist to be murdered in Mexico this month.
Almost this sense of both frustration but exhaustion. You know, Mexico is and continues to be the deadliest country in the hemisphere for journalists.
She says the problem, there's no political will to protect reporters and hold people accountable, even when reporters ask for help, like Maldonado. CPJ has documented and is investigating 18 in the last 2 years.
That's an average of one every 6 weeks. That's a horrifying statistic, and that's not something that can continue. We're going to lose access to information. There's already parts of the country that are effectively news deserts.
Aline says while she and her colleagues will carry on their work, they can't help but wonder the obvious.
We have a question in our minds. Who could be the next one?
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
And now to the pandemic, as we might be seeing the end of the Omicron surge. Case numbers are trending in the right direction. Over the weekend, the county reported more than 10,000 cases on Friday, and then by Sunday, that number was nearly cut in half to 5,400. Still, it's enough for another local college to move its classes online. Southwestern College in Chula Vista put out the notice today. While a few classes will be allowed to be held in person, the majority will be remote through February 25th. Exceptions will be made for some performing arts and sports. San Diego Unified joined the LA Unified School District today in supporting a proposed new law to increase vaccination rates. It would prevent parents from using personal beliefs to keep their kids from getting immunized. KPBS education reporter MG Perez has much more on that and another twist in the effort to require staff vaccinations.
Carla McAllis is a paraeducator at Pershing Middle School. She's waiting to be tested for COVID-19 again.
did have a bunch of home tests, but I ran out, so I've been testing about every week.
Carla has also followed the San Diego Unified School District's requirement to be fully vaccinated, something that 75% of the district's students 12 and up have now done. That's according to school board trustee Richard Barrera. Barrera traveled to the San Fernando Valley this morning to support a proposed change to state law.
Our educators want to be able to come to work and do their job, which is to educate students, rather than continue with this roller coaster of needing to be public health experts at the same time that they're trying to educate kids.
State Senator Dr. Richard Pan of Sacramento is a pediatrician, politician, and parent, proposing a bill to close the loophole allowing other parents to use personal beliefs to keep their children from getting any state-mandated vaccinations, including COVID-19.
We can make effective use of our time and money to be sure children are educated in our schools, and that's really what this bill is about, keeping schools open and safe and providing that certainty that that's going to happen.
Last month, a judge struck down San Diego Unified's mandate requiring eligible students 16 and up be fully vaccinated in order to attend school in person. The district has appealed the ruling on that mandate that was supposed to go into effect today. While there remains no student vaccination mandate for now, the start of the spring semester does bring a deadline for district staff members who must now be fully vaccinated or have applied for their exemptions. KPBS News obtained this copy of a termination letter sent January 20th to dozens of employees who have not complied. Simply said, it informs the staff member they will be terminated tomorrow, January 25th, for failure to provide by January 18th proof of COVID-19 vaccination. Carla McAllis complied on time and with good reason.
I think it gives a lot of people peace of mind, and that's really important for the employees and for parents.
If Senator Pan and his coalition of education officials succeed in getting the Keep Schools Open and Safe bill passed, the earliest it would be enacted is January 1st, 2023. MG Perez, KPBS News.
Childcare centers are a lifeline for parents of younger kids, but those who care for them are struggling. Coming up a bit later, KPBS News investigates the difficulty in keeping childcare centers properly staffed. From low pay to increasing workloads, hear from those who say the system is at its breaking point. The Los Angeles Unified School District is doing away with cloth masks. Instead, the nation's second largest school district says students and staff need to wear well-fitted non-cloth masks with nose wires. The district says everyone has to wear the surgical type masks at all times, except when consuming food or drink. Health officials have increasingly encouraged people to upgrade their masks to surgical grade or higher quality like N95. Commuters who take the 78 to the 5 freeway are often met with a stoplight and long lines. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne tells us leaders are trying to secure funding for improvements to this interchange.
Local leaders are mobilizing to secure infrastructure funding from President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law.
And I was very proud to announce last week that 2 local projects here in our district are going to be receiving a portion of that funding.
U.S. Representative Mike Levin announced $30 million have been allocated for the Encinitas Solana Beach Coastal Storm Damage Reduction Project and $1.8 million for the Oceanside Special Shoreline Study. And Levin is looking to do more. Today, he met with local leaders to discuss funding for improvements to the I-5 and 78 interchange.
Drivers who've often taken the 78 freeway to the 5 South freeway have sometimes gotten stuck in these long lines just waiting to get onto the freeway because of the stoplight right here. And so now local leaders are proposing a flyover bridge that would be funded from the bipartisan infrastructure law that would connect these 2 freeways together and make that daily commute just a little bit easier on drivers.
Encinitas Mayor and Sandag Chairperson Catherine Blakespear says the improvement will increase efficiency and also help the environment.
It will also reduce congestion. By making it more convenient for people to carpool, we're also helping to reduce traffic and greenhouse gas emissions and to improve our air quality.
Before funding for this project is approved, Sandag will need to complete an application and conduct environmental impact reports. But Levin feels confident funding will be approved.
There's one program in the bipartisan infrastructure law specifically for areas that have high congestion, and I think we are going to qualify.
He says construction should only take 18 to 24 months, but permitting and approvals for the project could push this out 4 or 5 years. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Thousands of American military members are being put on alert for possible deployment to Eastern Europe due to Russia's threats to Ukraine. Meanwhile, China is renewing tensions with one of its neighbors. Chris Nguyen explains the global conflicts and why the U.S. might get involved.
Amid mounting fears of a Russian incursion into Ukraine.
Even as we continue to prioritize diplomacy and dialogue, we must also increase readiness.
The Biden administration is considering deploying several thousand U.S. troops to Eastern Europe and the Baltics. The potential move meant to deter Russia from invading Ukraine.
The United States has taken steps to heighten the readiness of its forces at home and abroad, so that they are prepared to respond to a range of contingencies, including support to the NATO response force if it is activated.
With Russia amassing troops along the Ukrainian border and British intelligence services reporting the Kremlin's possible intentions to install a pro-Russian leader in Kiev, U.S. and NATO allies are taking a firmer stance. The Kremlin called those reports hysteria.
The United States will act firmly in defense of its national interests in response to actions by Russia that harm us, our allies, our partners.
Russia sees NATO's growing support for Ukraine as a threat to its own security.
There are certain basic principles that we're not by one iota going to compromise on, including, for example, NATO's open door. The right of countries to choose with whom they'll associate.
The U.S. military also reacting to another incident overseas after dozens of Chinese warplanes crossed into Taiwan's air defense identification zone Sunday and Monday. China's aggression following a U.S.-Japan show of naval force in the Philippine Sea. Chris Nguyen, KPBS News.
Tax season 2022 is upon us. The IRS started accepting 2021 tax returns today. If you use Venmo, Cash App, or similar digital platforms, you may want to take note of a new tax rule. A 1099-K needs to be issued if someone makes more than $600 for business during the year. And this applies to any payment for goods and services, and that includes tips, Airbnb, as well as Etsy. But don't worry, this does not include reimbursing friends or chipping into group gifts. Forms will go out early next year. And hardship continues to fall on the restaurant industry. The National Restaurant Association says that 88% of restaurants have experienced a decline in demand because of the Omicron surge. On Monday, the association sent a letter to Congress asking lawmakers to replenish the nearly $29 billion fund for restaurant revitalization in the upcoming legislation package. The fund ran out last year with only a third of applying restaurants actually getting those grants. Even before COVID, it was difficult to hire childcare staff because the positions are undervalued and poorly paid. Now, it's nearly impossible. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregesser looks at what is causing a childcare staffing crisis in the region.
Earning a college degree takes years of hard work.
In May 2021, Allie had just graduated from SDSU with a degree in child and family development and went looking for her first job. She was hired immediately by a local preschool.
This is the first and only job I applied to, and it ended up working out.
But her college education did little to prepare her for what she ended up walking into.
So technically, I would have a co-teacher, and we would split up the children 6 and 6. But with where I'm at right now, I am keeping all 12 kids together.
6 months into the job, Allie and her classroom of toddlers are left with a rotating cast of substitute teachers. Allie doesn't want to reveal her full name or the name of her school to protect her job.
We put name tags on the children so that we can help the subs identify them and they can actually refer to them by their name.
Plus, sometimes the subs themselves call in sick or just don't show up.
I've noticed how attached they are to me, and when other subs come in, it's kind of like stranger danger.
Preschools and childcare centers everywhere are dealing with a massive staffing shortage. On job search websites, there are more than 200 local childcare openings, some even offering signing bonuses. Providers told KPBS they can't find qualified people to hire. The problem is much worse than the general labor shortage trend. Childcare providers have to compete with retailers and restaurants for workers, but those other sectors can raise starting wages. Plus, people are still worried about catching COVID from unvaccinated toddlers.
We're asking so much for, $12 an hour when you could be making more at McDonald's or, Starbucks or Target, where you don't have to do such an emotionally demanding job.
Caitlin McLean is with the Center for the Study of Childcare Employment at UC Berkeley.
If we want to make sure that families have access to these services, we have to make sure that this is a good job that people want to do. And we have not been doing that.
On average, California preschool teachers make less than half of what kindergarten teachers make, and more than a third of childcare workers live below the federal poverty line. Raising pay for these workers might seem like an easy solution, but there's a domino effect. First off, state regulations require childcare centers to have one teacher for every 4 infants and one for every 6 toddlers, which means a lot of staff. So if they pay more, they'd have no choice but to raise rates for parents, which many can't afford.
There's no way that I can continue to ask parents to pay out of pocket at a higher weekly rate than I already do. I'm already within market rate.
Holly Weber owns Magic Hour Preschool in Mira Mesa.
It's just running a fine line between parents choosing to not even go back to work because their childcare expenses are so exorbitant.
People, of course, are going to apply to jobs where you aren't being recognized.
Like Allie, Brianna Mendoza also recently graduated from SDSU with an early childhood education degree. But she has no interest in working at a preschool. She instead is looking at jobs where she would work one-on-one with children in crisis, which would pay $21 to $22 an hour.
I mean, you are constantly running. I'm telling you, I would be sweating in the classrooms, whether I was changing diapers, carrying babies, feeding them, sweeping, it wasn't just childcare in there. It was sweeping, housework, doing laundry.
Meanwhile, Allie, who is solo teaching at a local preschool, is trying to hold on, but isn't sure how long she wants to continue.
Considering I'm doing the job of 2 teachers right now at minimum wage, it's really discouraging.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
Building codes will be updated thanks to science out of UC San Diego. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge tells us how a common piece of construction equipment won't hold up during a strong earthquake.
This 18-foot steel column, which would stand vertically in a building, is in the grip of a vise on UCSD's shake table. The table simulates the stress of a building's weight and the movement of a strong earthquake. Ultimately, the column buckles and bends, which could cause a building to lean or even collapse. A cross-section of this column is seen on the left, as if viewed from above. The problem is the column's connecting spine, called the web, which is too thin.
It gets very thin, so this lattice goes very high, that the column itself is at risk of buckling too much and losing some of its load-carrying capacity.
Jay Harris is a structural engineer who co-wrote a paper on the shake table test, which appeared in the Journal of Structural Engineering.
If you lose the ability to carry those gravity forces, you could be at risk for some type of collapse. Whether or not it's a partial or total collapse, that's going to be specific to the building, the skeleton, and where that column's located and what is it carrying.
One of the consequences of a buckling column is what's called story drift. That's when the upper stories of a multi-story building sway in an earthquake, causing the building to lean. Ironically, the use of the wide columns that failed the shake table test became quite common following the Northridge earthquake of 1994. Engineers thought their greater width would prevent lateral building movement in an earthquake. Now, Harris says the columns that were examined will be phased out with new building codes. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
A bit of a warm-up is expected this week in coastal neighborhoods. Jessica Pash has the forecast.
Well, our upper low that was sitting over us over the weekend, bringing some gusty winds at times, has departed, but we still have a little bit of an onshore wind event here from tonight into early tomorrow. That'll bring a little bit of cloud cover here and fog early on Tuesday, but should get warmer and brighter as we head into Wednesday. Looking at the possibility of some Santa Ana winds there too, especially as we get another piece of energy diving south into the Rockies. That should increase our winds a little bit there as we move into Tuesday night and Wednesday. For tonight, though, temperatures getting down into the low 40s for you Monday night in Oceanside, mid-30s in Ramona. El Cajon getting down to 43 degrees. Tuesday looking like a mainly sunny day. Again, a little bit of early morning fog and cloud cover, though that should lift throughout the day, bringing more in the way of sunshine for your Tuesday afternoon. We'll be up into the mid-60s in Oceanside, mid-70s in Borrego Springs, low 50s for you out towards Mount Laguna. But again, for the most part, temperatures will be on the warming trend as we move through the next several days. Wednesday, same story here. Sunny, pleasant day, but keeping an eye on that area of high pressure could create some more offshore strong winds, and we'll be watching for that possibility of Santa Ana winds there Wednesday into Thursday. So near the coast, temperatures go from the 60s back into the 70s, above average here, especially as we head into Friday. Mid-70s to close out the work week under partly sunny skies and, again, really nice weather over the next several days. Further inland, temperatures go from the upper 60s into the low to mid-70s for you Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Should see mainly sunshine here moving forward. Temperatures right around 70 as we head into next Saturday. In the mountains, temperatures could drop a little bit there on Wednesday, but for the most part, we're looking at highs in the low 50s for you for Tuesday, for Thursday, and heading into Friday. And in the deserts, temperatures here looking to stay mainly in the low to mid 70s. Not a whole lot of change from day to day. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Jessica Pash.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the U.S. puts thousands of troops on heightened alert to counter the Russian threat against Ukraine. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Matt Gape boots it through, and the Rams, by the hair of their skinny teeth, wind up winning it.
3 games so far, a walk-off field goal.
Yes.
All 3.
Yes.
For the second straight year, we might see a team with home field advantage in the Super Bowl. The LA Rams are one step closer after knocking out last year's champs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was part of a wild weekend of playoff football. Many are calling the best in NFL history. The Rams will host their division rivals, the San Francisco 49ers, and the winner will take on the Chiefs or Bengals in Super Bowl 56 at SoFi Stadium. And the SDSU men's basketball team is back at Viejas Arena tonight for their second game in a 5-day stretch. Saturday's game against Boise State was their first game back after a rash of COVID cases brought an unexpected pause to the season. SDSU lost 42-37 in a low-scoring game. It snapped what was a 16-game winning streak at home. The Aztecs will take on UNLV tonight in another game that was rescheduled due to COVID pause. A COVID video game? Many people continue to wonder how COVID variants spread, especially in a busy office environment. A programmer has created a playable simulation program to show us how. Rick Damigella reports.
COVID Simulator is exactly as the name implies, visualizing what happens when people infected with COVID-19 spread the illness indoors.
COVID Simulator is an outbreak visualization game laced with a lot of dark humor. COVID Simulator is an attempt to make something kind of fun, but make it a very streamlined, simple, basic, this is how COVID spreads in a workplace, at home, or whatever.
Created by a single developer, the simulation uses publicly available CDC data.
You model your workplace and then you get your employees and then you say, okay, well, what would happen if we had an outbreak? I find a lot of people will do that and then try to see how quickly they can fix it so where there's no more COVID left. And they have a hard time doing that because it's not that easy to get rid of.
Players can adjust variables for infection rates, mask usage, vaccination status, and even alternative treatments and anti-vaccine behaviors.
These kind of things are good information to give to people so they can make an informed decision about what they should be doing. And that's kind of like the mission statement of the simulator in the first place is I'm not going to, I think, advance science in any way, but I will hopefully help you to say, okay, well, what do I think is worth the risk for me?
Leveling up in Hollywood, I'm Rick Damagella.
So who would like a free box of a dozen donuts? Well, I guess the question is who wouldn't? That's what Krispy Kreme is offering customers who donate blood. The donut shop is trying to help with the blood shortage seen across the country. And to get your donuts, you need to order in person and also show your donation sticker. But you can also show proof of your donation through the Red Cross app. Since March of last year, the Red Cross has seen a drop in donations due to canceled blood drives and staffing shortages. And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Potential criminal charges against Donald Trump. NPR's Morning Edition has Georgia's move to seat a grand jury over the former president's effort to overturn election results. And on KPBS Midday Edition, an update on the San Diego homeless population and why the census is being postponed. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.